Brooklyn Independent Television.
Red Hook Lane was an old Native American trail running from Fulton Ferry to Red Hook and Fort Defiance. American riflemen are said to have positioned themselves along the lane. One such American soldier allegedly shot and killed British Major Grant, and their bodies are believed to be buried here at the corner of Columbia and Nelson. The Brooklyn Collective emerged when local designers wanted a space to sell their metalwork jewelry and vintage-inspired clothing alongside other artists' creations.
I'm Rachel Goldberg and we're at Brooklyn Collective. We came up with Brooklyn Collective about 4.5 years ago. Tessa and I make jewelry and she does clothing. And we both wanted a space where we can sell our own stuff, but where we can give artists the chance to sell their work without any kind of pressure to have to create a specific type of line for a specific type of stores. We were both familiar with kind of dragging our stuff around to stores and having them go, I like this one, but I don't like that, and kind of giving more faith to the artists and saying, we like your stuff, just go, just do whatever's crazy, do whatever you want. One thing that's special about us is that people pay for their space, which is just a piece of the rent, but we don't take any of their profits, they keep everything. It's kind of like a flea market, but an upscale kind of, you know, you don't have to work your space, you don't have to, I mean, that was kind of the jumping off for that too. I mean, a lot of people join artist markets, but there's so much work involved personally for the artist in order to get that kind of payback, and we kind of take that away and also place it in a shop where they can get a higher price for their work. We kind of also wanted a space where people could collaborate together, where, I mean, it's kind of like half gallery, half clubhouse.
I met Rachel, I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, and just from moving to the neighborhood. And I actually used to sell my clothing to her other shop in the neighborhood. And discussing like going around and trying to sell our goods to other stores and how frustrating it is to like have your line edited. It makes it hard when you do like one-of-a-kind things. So we came up with an idea of how could we have our work together in a store basically without having a big overhead. So we thought if we got, 10 to 15 people involved, all paying rent but keeping what they sell, then it would basically be a business that took care of itself. We rotate the works every 2 to 3 months, and so we're always having new artists, new designers, and we definitely have been able to cover our bases so far, and it just kind of took on a life of its own.
I've been making jewelry since I was about 5. My mother bought out the contents of a jewelry factory about 25 years ago, so I grew up with all of this stuff under my bed. Basically, a lot of the materials are still from the stock that she had bought out, so those are the ones I use now.
I moved to New York from California, where I went to college, fashion design school. But I actually grew up on the East Coast, and my mother had a fabric and yarn store, and she would make everything. Like anytime I wanted a piece of clothing in a store, she would, we can make that. So it was like, instead of ever having anything like bought, it was all handmade. It just kind of evolved into this label that I have now, which is just all one-of-a-kind pieces. Gets a little more fun than it is serious. So I think this neighborhood is very special. There's a lot of great little businesses here, and everybody knows each other. And I've been here, I moved to this neighborhood from when I first got to New York, and I wouldn't leave it. We've had people tell us that when we have parties, it brings a lot of business to their restaurants, because we get anywhere from 200 to 300 people sometimes.
Rachel, can you tell me a little bit about this artwork right here? It's beautiful.
Sure. This is Belen, and she works in ink and watercolor on paper, and she lives actually in the neighborhood.
Can you tell me a little bit about the sexy lingerie here?
This is Colleen Scarlet. She works in a lot of vintage fabrics mixed with new fabrics, and she's also a burlesque dancer.
I like this. Well, can we move over here? Because
Sure.
I was looking at these clothes earlier, and they are absolutely beautiful.
This is my partner, Tessa, and her stitching is just out of this world. And she also works in repurposed and new materials, which I think is what a lot of designers are doing right now.
All right, Rachel, let me see some of your jewelry. I know you make your own.
Sure. These are the pieces. I work mostly with vintage parts. I like to pull it apart and kind of rework pieces. I do work in silver as well, but this is a new line that I'm working on, which is all brass and crystal and pearl.
Okay, Rachel, what do we have over here?
This is two people whose company is called Via Nativa, and they import jewelry from Latin American artisans. The work on this is incredible.
I love the colors. They're very nature.
Yeah.
It's all about nature. Well, tell me about this artist we have here.
This is Gordis. She works in oils and also in watercolor on paper with a mix of collage.
How do you find your artists?
It's just a lot of time that Tessa and I spent just going to different websites, artists, just Googling Brooklyn artists.
I love that your artists are so different. I love that there's not one theme you have in here.
Tessa and I just kind of react to something. Whatever we have like an emotional response to, whatever gets us excited when we see it, that's what we know that we need to put in.
I love the store, and I love your work, and I love Tessa's work, and I think it's great. And thank you so much for letting us go on this tour with you. This is wonderful.
Brooklyn Independent Television on the BCAT TV network.